My kids and I kind of wrote this book on the different emotions and grieving processes that we've experienced.
This is Corey Richins, a well-known author who wrote a children's book meant to help kids cope with the loss of their father. To many, she appeared to have it all: a successful real estate career, a loving marriage, and a family of 3 children. But behind that polished image, something much darker was unfolding. At the time her husband's death was being investigated, Corey was reportedly drowning in debt, and authorities believed she stood to inherit millions if he died. And as the case began to unravel, disturbing claims emerged that even her own son believed she only cared about herself and her stupid boyfriends. So the question remains, was she truly a grieving wife caught in tragedy, or was there something far more calculated hiding in plain sight? By the end of this video, I'll let you decide for yourself. Eric Richins was born on May 13, 1982, and he grew up in Summit County, Utah, a small, tight-knit community where the Richins family was genuinely loved. His parents, Gene and Linda, raised him on a sprawling cattle ranch that later became a permanent conservatory. There are buildings in that town named after the Richins family. That is the kind of legacy Eric came from. He was the eldest of 3 siblings, with 2 younger sisters, Katie and Amy, who would both later become central figures in this story. As a young man, Eric excelled in sports, learned the value of hard work on the ranch, served a 2-year LDS mission trip to Mexico City, where he became fluent in Spanish, and went on to earn a degree in international studies from the University of Utah. After a painful first marriage and divorce in his early 20s, Eric rebuilt his life. He co-founded a masonry company called C&E Masonry with his best friend and business partner, Cody Wright. And by all accounts, he built it into something real. Valued at around $2.5 million, the business was a genuine success. He loved to hunt, ride anything with wheels, coach his boys' sports teams, and laugh. His friends said his laugh was the kind that filled a whole room. He was, by every measure, a good man. On the other hand, Corey Darden was born on April 1, 1990. A fact that, looking back, some people find either deeply ironic or deeply telling, depending on who you ask. She grew up largely without her father, who lived in North Carolina and struggled with alcohol throughout his life. He died in 2010 at 57, before he could walk his daughter down the aisle. Corey was raised primarily by her mother Lisa, alongside siblings Ronnie Jr., Renee, and Mindy. What Corey did have was drive. She worked constantly. Housekeeping, healthcare, a design company, a hospital, while earning a bachelor's degree in healthcare administration and a master's degree in human resources. By the time she was standing at the Home Depot register where Eric first noticed her, she was sharp, ambitious, and by all accounts, one of the most striking women in their small Utah town. Eric was a regular customer. He kept coming back. The cashier who introduced them teased him constantly, urging him to ask her out. When he finally did, and when she finally said yes, they were said to become inseparable almost immediately. He was the funny, driven, generous one. She was smart and beautiful. From the outside, it looked like a fairy tale, and it didn't take long for that fairy tale to become reality. Eric and Corey married in 2013, but on the morning of the wedding, just before the ceremony, Eric's mother, Linda, handed Corey a prenuptial agreement. The message was simple. After Eric's first marriage had cost him so much emotionally and financially, the family wanted a safeguard in place. The prenup stated that if Eric and Corey were to divorce, neither would have any claim to the other's income or assets. But, and this is the part that matters, if one of them died, the surviving spouse would inherit everything. Eric also named Corey and his business partner Cody as beneficiaries on his life insurance policy, so that if Eric died, Cody could use his portion to buy out Eric's share of the business. Everyone signed. The wedding happened. Life moved forward. And for a while, it really did look like everything they had built together was worth protecting. Corey started her own real estate business, buying and flipping homes across Utah. They owned multiple properties, drove nice cars, took family vacations, and raised 3 boys in a home that looked like something off a magazine cover. Eric coached every one of his son's sports teams. His wife and children were, by his own words to everyone around him, his whole world. But starting in 2020, something shifted. In 2020, Eric and Corey took a romantic trip to Greece together. One night during that vacation, Eric called his sister Amy and told her something alarming. Corey had fixed him a drink, and after he drank it, he became violently ill. He told Amy he thought Corey had tried to poison him, That is a serious allegation to make from a Greek holiday. Corey's family later offered a different explanation, that Eric had been on medication and accidentally received an alcoholic drink when he had asked for one without alcohol, and that Corey had actually helped him by calling his doctor. By their account, Eric was fine by the end of the night. Whatever the truth was in Greece, Eric came home with something new, doubt, and quiet doubt in a man like Eric didn't lead to confrontation. It led to careful, quiet action. In November 2020, without saying a word to his wife, Eric drew up a new living trust. He transferred the family home, all his personal property, and his share of C&E masonry into it. And he gave full control of that trust, should he die, to his sister Katie, not to Corey. He told his sisters about his concerns. He put Katie on his policy as power of attorney. He said nothing to Corey, and for a while, life on the surface continued normally. Then came January 2022. Cody Wright, Eric's business partner, got an unexpected notification from their insurance company. Someone had logged into their account and changed Eric's life insurance policy. Corey had removed Cody's name and made herself the sole beneficiary, without telling either of them. When Cody told Eric, they switched it back immediately. And this time, Eric removed Corey from the policy entirely. He confided in his sisters. He started quietly considering divorce. He wanted to protect his boys and keep things civil, so he said nothing openly to Corey, but he told his sisters clearly, if anything ever happened to him, they should look straight at her. He had no idea how little time he had left. Between December 2021 and February 2022, Corey Richens reached out to an acquaintance known in court documents as CL, a person law enforcement was already aware of for having a history of dealing controlled substances. Corey reportedly told this person she needed pain medication for an investor with back problems. She left $900 in cash at a house she was renovating. CL left hydrocodone in exchange. 2 weeks later, Corey came back, and this time she asked for something different. She reportedly said she wanted that Michael Jackson stuff, specifying she was looking for fentanyl. Fentanyl is 100 times stronger than morphine, the drug at the center of an epidemic that kills hundreds of people every day. And Corey Richens just spent $900 on 15 to 30 pills of the street version of it. 3 days after that first purchase, February 14th, Valentine's Day, Eric ate a sandwich that Corey had prepared for him. Shortly afterward, he broke out in hives, felt like he couldn't breathe, and passed out. He used one of their son's EpiPens. He later told Cody he believed Corey had put something in his food. He told his sisters, if anything happens to me, it's her. According to Corey's legal team, this has been massively overblown. They said it was minor, that Eric went and coached one of his son's games afterward. But Eric clearly didn't see it as minor, because he said those exact words to multiple people. On February 26th, Corey went back to CL and spent another $900 on more fentanyl. 12 days later, Eric Richens was dead. According to Corey, the evening of March 3rd, 2022 was a celebration. They had just finalized an offer on a massive 20,000 square foot mansion in nearby Midway, Utah, a property known locally as the Grand House, sitting on nearly 9 acres of land. The deal had been a huge source of tension between them. Eric had thought it was too expensive and not worth the risk, but Corey had wanted it badly, and to put her mind at ease, Eric had apparently let her believe the deal was moving forward, though his family says he had privately planned to tell her they were backing out. That evening, Corey made Eric a Moscow Mule, vodka, ginger beer, and lime. She brought it to him in bed, along with a THC gummy. She said one of their sons woke up from a nightmare shortly after, and she went to comfort him. She fell asleep in his bed. She said she woke at around 3 in the morning, returned to their bedroom, and found Eric cold and unresponsive. She called 911. When paramedics arrived, Eric was found either at the foot of the bed or on the floor near it, not where you would find someone who had simply been lying next to their sleeping spouse. Corey told responders she had attempted CPR, but paramedics noted that blood was coming from Eric's mouth, suggesting the CPR claim was unlikely. After multiple failed life-saving attempts, 39-year-old Eric Richens was declared dead. An autopsy later revealed he had 5 times the fatal amount of street fentanyl in his system. He also had quetiapine, better known as Seroquel, a medication used to treat schizophrenia and bipolar disorder, in his blood. Eric had no prescription for it. Corey did. Police initially ruled it an accidental overdose. Case closed. Except it wasn't. In the days, weeks, and months following Eric's death, Corey Richens grieved publicly and loudly. She attended events. She spoke to the media. She leaned into the persona of the devastated young widow trying to hold her family together. And then she wrote a book. The book was called Are You With Me? A children's picture book about helping kids process the loss of a parent. Corey went on local television to promote it, sitting on talk show couches and describing in soft, careful tones how she and her boys were navigating the grief of losing their father so suddenly. She described him as a wonderful husband. She said his death had completely shocked her. The book made its way to the top of the charts on Amazon and Barnes & Noble. And all of this, every interview, every appearance, every copy sold, was happening while investigators were quietly and methodically taking her story apart.
Dad is still here, it's just in a different way.
33-year-old Richens was interviewed about her book by KTVX in Salt Lake City.
My kids and I kind of wrote this book on the different emotions and grieving processes that we've experienced.
Her book gets 5-star reviews on Amazon, very well written and from the heart. Thank you, Corey, for writing a book that helps young minds understand that spirits of our loved ones are around us always.
He was 39. It completely took us all by shock.
Police began to look harder at Corey after details of Eric's death stopped adding up. They requested access to her phone. She told them she had left it plugged in at the bedside when she went to comfort her son and had fallen asleep in his room. But phone records told a completely different story. There was movement. There were deleted text messages. There were communications with someone during the exact window she claimed to have been asleep. A digital expert later testified that Corey appeared to have waited up to 15 minutes before calling 911, time that remains unaccounted for. Investigators also found deleted messages between Corey and CL. The messages covered the drug purchases, the ones that produced the exact substance that killed her husband. When detectives brought CL in for questioning, CL confirmed selling fentanyl to Corey. And then there were the Google searches made after Eric was found dead. What is the lethal dose of fentanyl? Luxury prisons for the rich in America? Death certificate says pending. Will life insurance still pay? Can cops force you to do a lie detector test? How to permanently delete information from an iPhone remotely? All of them damning, some of them almost comically self-incriminating. Luxury prisons for the rich in particular, suggesting that even as she planned her next steps, Corey was already thinking about a comfortable exit strategy. A financial expert later revealed that at the time of Eric's death, Corey's real estate business was in serious trouble. Her accounts were overdrawn. Her credit lines were maxed out. She owed approximately $4 million to hard money lenders from properties she had planned to flip. She was, in the expert's words, standing on the edge of financial collapse. And according to the prenup she had signed a decade earlier, divorce would leave her with nothing. But death would leave her with everything. Or so she thought, not knowing Eric had already quietly transferred it all into a trust controlled by his sister. On May 8, 2023, 14 months after Eric's death, Corey Richens was arrested and charged with first-degree murder.
Changes to the case of Corey Richens, the Utah mom who wrote a children's book on grief, then is now charged in the murder of her husband.
Now, if you thought getting arrested would make Corey Richens lie low, you would be wrong. In September 2023, jail staff conducted a routine search of her cell and found a handwritten letter, pages long, titled in large letters at the top, "Walk the dog," underneath in smaller writing, "But take vague notes so you remember," which is, perhaps, the single most suspicious way to start a private letter ever written. The letter was addressed to her mother, Lisa, and it contained detailed instructions for how Corey's brother should testify in court. She wrote that her lawyer wanted to link Eric to buying drugs in Mexico, so they needed some kind of connection. She drafted entire scripts, switching into the third person, telling her brother what to say word for word. The letter instructed him to tell the court that Eric had a secret drug habit, that Corey was always complaining he got high instead of helping with the kids, and that Eric's sisters had always been jealous of her success. She ended the letter with a request for her lawyer to sneak her some teeth-whitening strips because, and this is a direct quote, "All we do is drink coffee in this Mexican prison." When prosecutors moved to have the letter admitted as evidence, Corey had an explanation. She claimed it was just a chapter of a fictional mystery thriller she was writing from jail. A harmless piece of fiction that happened to feature characters named Corey and Eric, and that happened to script specific statements for real people who were going to testify in her actual murder trial. The judge didn't buy it. The letter was admitted as evidence. Prosecutors filed a no-contact order between Corey and her family. In early 2024, the autopsy findings about Seroquel became public. The medication, a powerful sedative most commonly prescribed for serious psychiatric disorders, had been found in Eric's system alongside the fentanyl. Eric had no prescription for it. Corey did. The implication was impossible to ignore. She may have used the Seroquel to sedate him first, making it easier to administer the lethal dose. Then came another detail that many found deeply unsettling. Court records revealed that Corey's own mother, Lisa, had been in a serious relationship with a woman who died unexpectedly from an oxycodone overdose. Lisa was listed as the beneficiary of a large life insurance policy in the woman's name. Law enforcement took note. The apple, as they say, does not fall far from the tree. Later in 2024, prosecutors added a charge of attempted murder for the Valentine's Day sandwich incident. A grand jury agreed there was enough evidence to support the charge that Corey had tried to kill Eric weeks before she succeeded. Corey was also convicted in a separate proceeding for assaulting Eric's sister Amy, an incident that happened just days after Eric's death, when Amy caught Corey hiring a locksmith to break into Eric's gun safe. Corey punched her sister-in-law. She received the maximum sentence for the assault, 6 months in jail and a fine. Then in July 2025, even more charges were filed, this time entirely financial. 5 counts of mortgage fraud, 7 counts of money laundering, 5 counts of forgery, 7 counts of issuing bad checks. The charges alleged she had falsified Eric's business records to take out additional mortgage loans, then use that money to pay off other debts rather than toward the properties. And in October 2025, just months before the murder trial was set to begin, a key prosecution witness recanted. This person had previously admitted to supplying fentanyl to CL, who then sold it to Corey. Now they were saying they had actually sold oxycodone, not fentanyl. The defense called it a grenade thrown into the middle of the prosecution's case. Prosecutors maintained they had far more evidence than this one witness. By the time the trial started in February 2026, the case had become one of the most sprawling and chaotic in Utah's recent legal history, with lawsuits going in every direction, charges stacking up on charges, and a defendant who, from a jail cell, kept writing things down. The trial of Corey Richens began on February 23, 2026, in Park City, Utah, and lasted approximately 3 weeks. Prosecutors laid out a clear and methodical case. Corey was in financial freefall. She was carrying secret debts her husband didn't fully know about. The prenup meant that divorce left her with nothing, but death left her with everything. She had purchased fentanyl through a back channel weeks before Eric died. She had altered his life insurance beneficiary without his knowledge. She had run Google searches about lethal doses and luxury prisons. She had attempted to script her own family's testimony from jail. And Eric himself had told multiple people, on multiple occasions, that if anything happened to him, Corey was responsible. The defense called no witnesses. Corey did not take the stand. After 13 days of testimony, the jury deliberated for approximately 3 hours. On March 17, 2026, Corey Richens was found guilty on all 5 counts: aggravated murder, attempted aggravated murder, insurance fraud, and forgery. The jury had no doubt. And on May 13, 2026, Corey Richens was sentenced in a Summit County courtroom. The date was not random. May 13th would have been Eric's 44th birthday. For several hours, Corey sat silently as Eric's family delivered victim impact statements. His sister Katie, through tears, described the 15 months after his death, during which Corey reportedly prevented the boys from having any contact with their father's family. She asked the judge for the harshest possible sentence. Then came the statements from Eric's 3 sons, read aloud on their behalf. One child said that Corey had only ever cared about herself and her stupid boyfriends. Another accused her of killing the family's animals and said he believed she had tried to poison him too, causing a seizure. A third said he would never feel safe if she were ever released from prison. These were not adults testifying. These were children, Eric's children, the same boys Corey had used as the inspiration for her grief book. When it was Corey's turn to speak, she spoke for approximately 30 minutes. She addressed her sons directly and tearfully, but maintained to the end that she did not do it. "As much as you've been influenced into thinking that I'm a murderer, that I took your dad from you, that is completely wrong," she said. "That is an absolute lie." She vowed to appeal. She told her boys she was coming home. Judge Richard Mrazek sentenced Corey Richens to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Eric Richins was a 39-year-old man who coached his son's sports teams, built a business from the ground up, and by every account loved his family more than anything in the world. He told people he was afraid. He took quiet steps to protect himself. He tried to keep things civil for his boys, and none of it was enough. His 3 sons have now lost both parents in the span of a few years. One to murder, one to a prison cell. They will grow up without a father because of a decision their mother made. They will grow up with the knowledge of what she did, and some of them have already said in court, in their own words, that they would not feel safe if she came home. That is the real cost of what Corey Richins did, not the money she thought she was going to get, money that was already locked away in a trust she didn't know about, not the insurance policies, not the mansion. All of that fell apart the moment Eric's family found out. She lost everything and left her children with nothing. For what? Corey Richins is now serving life without the possibility of parole. She still faces a separate case involving dozens of financial fraud charges that has yet to go to trial. She has vowed to appeal her murder conviction, and Eric Richins, who would have turned 44 on the day she was sentenced, will never get to see his boys grow up. So I want to know what you think. Was life without parole the right sentence? Should the fact that her own son said they didn't feel safe around her carry weight in a court of law? And what do you make of the children's book? Cold calculation, or genuine delusion? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. If this case got to you the way it got to us, please hit the like button and subscribe so we can keep bringing you stories like this one. These victims deserve to be remembered. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you in the next one.